3 o'clock on a Tuesday. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Lots to get to today. Appreciate you being with us. Plenty of Gamecock issues to discuss, football, baseball, and more. Our good friend Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports National College Football Analyst, going to join Elijah and me coming up in about a half hour's time. He's got some interesting thoughts on where Carolina is, and we're going to we know Brad well. So Elijah and I decided that we're going to put Brad on the spot about one particular facet of Gamecock football later this season. Put him on the spot. We thought about a multiple choice question, and then we decided to pull it off the table.
Well, considering the answer is probably going to be one of those anyway, we felt like it might not be completely appropriate to narrow it down to a multiple choice question. But hint, it may or may not have something to do with the schedule.
It may not.
Coach, can you talk about your schedule?
Yeah.
SEC Media Days. That's the free space on the bingo card, baby. Hey, Coach, can you talk about your schedule?
Yeah, the talk about anything part
is bad enough.
Yeah, like why are we here?
At the
yes, I can.
At the station I used to work at in Nashville, we had a jar. It's called the Talk About Jar. And if you asked, or if you told whatever guest is on, to talk about something, you had to put $1 in the talk about.
That was one of Haney's things, man, and it's hard to believe still that Michael Haney's been away from here for 10 years. But that was one of his things.
It's hard to believe 2015 was 10 years.
Yeah, I know. What were you doing 10 years ago? Well, you were in college.
I was before I got back into college. I was in between college. I was a special ed teacher's aide at an elementary school in Jamestown, Tennessee.
Wow.
10 years ago.
Look at you. And now you're working with me.
That's right.
Man, that's a step down.
From working with kindergarten to 8th graders all the way to working with Jay Phillips.
Mental capacity, roughly the same.
I'm still in the same ballpark, baby.
I can spell
still
cat.
In the same ballpark.
I can spell cat.
Do I need to spot you?
Did you ever see Deuce's United Way commercial from when he played for the Eagles? This is probably now like a 20-something-year-old commercial. I don't know if you remember, but for years and years and years and years, the United Way was like the official charity of the NFL, and they did a lot. And I think they still do some things with the United Way. But Deuce's commercial, and there was a bunch of great ones, but Deuce's was awesome. It was a spelling bee in like a first grade or second grade class, something like that, right? And Deuce is part of the class, and he's there with the teacher and everything. And there's a little girl that goes first, and the teacher goes like, I don't know, I forget the grade, like, Mary, I want you to spell cat. And so she's like, C-A-T. Very good. Deuce, I want you to spell chrysanthemum. and Deuce goes, chrysanthemum? She got cat. It was so good.
Like a Billy Madison scene.
It was, that was a good one. Anyway, well, I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
And I'm glad you finished college.
I am too.
Yeah.
My parents are definitely glad.
Yeah,
that
sure.
I finished college.
Sure. Lots to get to, as we said on the program. Football. Jordan Kaye. We talked some baseball yesterday, but Jordan Kaye, on the beat for the state newspaper, had an opportunity to speak one-on-one with athletics director Jeremiah Donati in the last couple of days, and the bulk of the conversation that Jordan published was about the baseball situation. And rather than us sit here and rehash some of that right this second, Jordan's going to join us at 4:15. And really what Elijah and I want, to do with Jordan, I mean, amongst some other things, is just kind of assess from his beat writer perspective what he got from the AD. We know there's been a lot said about what his, I was speaking with someone this morning, and I don't know where to draw a line, because you can go back, way back, and probably find a worse season and all that kind of stuff. Certainly, it's the worst SEC season the Gamecocks have ever had in baseball. I said it's probably the worst season that Carolina has had in the metal bat era, which I suppose goes back to, the late 70s?
I can look that up for you real quick.
Yeah, I can't remember what year they started using metal bats across the board in college baseball. But nevertheless, and we know that our friend John Whittle.
1974.
1974, thank you. Our friend John Whittle did a deep look with to answer the questions: how did this happen? Why did this happen? And as you might expect, there's I don't know if pushback is the right term to use, but I would say Jeremiah did that. For lack of a better term, I think there's a little pushback. Look, nobody wants to have a lot of dirty laundry aired, and maybe some of it was, as John has said and alluded to, from some people who weren't, real happy with their particular situation or anything like that. So we'll just talk to Jordan about what he picked up on, what he learned from his conversation with Jeremiah, and what this means for the baseball program too. And I've got a couple of questions for Jordan they may be more rhetorical in nature, but we'll get into some of those. Before we do anything else, real quick, there is breaking sports news, and it's kind of stunning. But then when you think of who did it, you might go, probably not. Just a little while ago, don't know how many minutes, but just a little while ago, the New York Knicks fired head coach Tom Thibodeau. Tibbs is a really good basketball coach. He led the Knicks to their first Eastern Conference Finals in a quarter of a century. In his 5 seasons at the helm, the Knicks went to the playoffs 4 times. And I'm just looking up here. I wasn't sure, but I see now. He had 23 playoff wins in the last 3 seasons. That is third best in the association. Mm-hmm. Not in the East, even. That's third best in the NBA over the last 3 years. But it doesn't surprise me at all because, James Dolan, Rockin' Jimmy Dolan, owns the Knicks. And I'm sure he has his basketball people working on this. To be fair for a minute and play devil's advocate or play both sides or whatever, Elijah, and you and I were just discussing this off air. Tibbs can be gruff. There's no doubt about that he's got that reputation, but it works. He was a very good coach in Chicago. He was a very good coach, obviously, in New York. They needed stability. They needed a grown-up in New York because their owner's not a grown-up.
Nope.
He's far from it. I think he's kind of, this is mean, but I think he kind of stopped around age 19, 20. I'm serious. Some of you know this already, but if you don't, the owner of the Knicks really fancies himself first and foremost as a blues rock musician. That's it to him. That's his life. That's his job. I'm a blues rock musician, and he has a band. They tour. He pays bigger bands money to let his band open for them sometimes. I forget who. Somebody told me once that he actually opened for a band at the Township a few years ago, like maybe like the Moody Blues or somebody. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. 3 Dog Night, something like, I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Something that people would go to and then would be forced to have to watch his band play.
Well, I just do what you should do, and that's just rarely go to the opening act. Like, I'll say this, real quick aside. Like Rod Stewart. We gave away tickets to Rod Stewart the other night, right? Cheap Trick is opening for Rod Stewart.
Nice.
On this tour. Go see Cheap Trick. Go see Rod Stewart, but Cheap Trick, I've seen 3 times in concert. They kick ass. Anyway, it doesn't surprise me. Look, I know the Knicks want to take the next step. I know the Knicks feel great about having beaten the Boston Celtics, who most of us, my hand is raised, felt were going to win back-to-back NBA championships. But a big injury and some other things sidelined them. And it didn't happen this year. It happens. It's sports. Sometimes you lose. They've got a good lineup. It's a pretty young lineup, all things considered. Karl Anthony Towns is now, in his early 30s probably? Or
oh, no.
30, what is he, 28?
He's been in the league for almost a decade now, but he was
I guess he was young,
so
right?
He's probably like 28.
So he's approaching 30?
Yeah.
Okay. But he doesn't play defense.
Not to Tibbs' liking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how much of a problem is that? I was joking. Dan Patrick this morning was talking about how Knick fans are basically saying, hey, trade the last 2 guys on the bench for Kevin Durant, or trade the last 2 guys on the bench for whomever is good.
Landry Shamet for Kevem Durant should be straight up, should be a pretty fair trade, right?
Trade him for Devin Booker, right. These outrageous, because that's New York sports fans. They have a sense of inflated worth.
Yes.
A lot of times. So this is surprising, but it's the best season the Knicks have had, again, literally in a quarter century. And 2 or 3 days after the end of the season, they fire the head coach. Now, who are you going to get?
Because it has to be a significant upgrade.
Right.
I don't know who else you're bringing in.
Who are you going to get? Who are you going to get that this group of players is going to listen to? And I don't mean this in a bad way. Anybody that, and I follow the NBA at about a 10% rate relative to Elijah Campbell. But it's a players' league.
Mm-hmm.
And of the 30 clubs in the NBA, I'd say about 20% of them really have a head coach that the team, I'm going to say this in a good way, fears, respects. Like, there's a lot of respect, but like the Spurs, you listened to Pop.
Elite level buy-in.
Yeah, the Dubs listened to Steve Kerr. Right? I think the Knicks listened to Tibbs.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Heat listened to Spoelstra. And there's probably a couple others. The Pacers love Rick Carlisle.
Because Rick Carlisle's won a title.
But he's
one of the best coaches in the modern NBA.
And who's playing for a championship this week? The Pacers.
The Pacers, yes.
So who are they going to go get? Man, you going to call Jay Wright and get him to come coach his former boys up in the Garden?
He might request that you trade Dante DiVincenzo back. Yeah. To get the full gang back together and recreate that magic. But I really just do not know who's out there that they are automatically sold that, A, they can hire. Because if you're a coach right now and you look at what they just did to Tom Thibodeau, like, well, if I do something crazy like send the Knicks to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since the turn of the century, then and I get fired, why would I want to coach there? Why would anyone want to coach there right now? Even though you have a really good team in place. If your reward for taking them to the Eastern Conference Finals is termination, then I don't know exactly why you'd want to do this. But this is why the Knicks are the Knicks. This is why they have a good year like they did in the late 90s or in the 99-2000 season, and then immediately fell into futility for 25 years after that. It's just a terribly run organization. This is what terribly run organizations do. Yeah. They fire the good coaches. They do the opposite of what got you into this position.
Good luck to them. They basically put out a statement that said, we're singularly focused on winning a championship. Well, what do you think Tibbs wants to do? Just get paid?
Yeah, did Tom Thibodeau in his exit interview say, yep, we accomplished our ultimate goal. Let's make the Eastern Conference Finals, and I don't think we really want to make it further than that. Yeah, that's it. I don't want to win a championship as a head coach. I won one as an assistant. It's overrated.
Silly.
Stupid.
Well, good luck to Knick fans everywhere. But who are you going to get? That's the thing. Before you make a move like this, you better have a pretty clear idea that as you said, you're going to significantly upgrade. You know,
so there's precedent for that happening.
Yeah, I mean, you might. But you're not. You know, it won't be Steve Kerr. It won't. You're not getting. But could you pull Spoels out of Miami? I don't know.
Good luck with that.
You know,
that guy's been there forever now.
Yeah, I mean, you're not getting Carlisle out of Indiana either. I don't think.
Nope.
He's got a good team.
He does, built in his image that he wants, and they're doing pretty well for themselves.
Rick Pitino ain't walking through that door. All right, we'll come back on the other side. It'd be fun, though.
That'd be hilarious.
He's in New York.
Because you know what? Hiring Rick Pitino has never failed for an NBA team.
No.
That has worked swimmingly, especially in the Eastern Conference, especially within the Knicks division. Nobody's ever done that. Nobody's tried that out.
Nope.
It's time to do it.
Yep. See what happens. Roll those dice, Rockin' Jimmy. We'll come back on the other side. ESPN has released their 2025 FPI, their Football Power Index for college teams. Where are the Gamecocks? Where are the Clemson Tigers? How many Gamecock opponents are in the top 20? We'll tell you on the other side. All right, welcome back in. Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports, coming up with us in just a little bit. Jay and Elijah with you on this Tuesday. Again, breaking news in the sports world today. Tom Thibodeau fired by the New York Knickerbockers after failing miserably by leading them to their best season in 25 years.
How dare he? Does he know what the New York Knicks are about?
Right.
Does he know? Yeah. Does he know we're about?
You're supposed to struggle to be the 8th seed and then lose to whomever's number 1.
Like, you see this, Jay Phillips? I want to pull something out of my backpack. You see this little Knicks Allen Houston jersey that I got from McDonald's toy back in like 2004? You see this? I found this at my dad's when I was there a couple weekends ago. I thought it was so funny I had to keep it around. This little Allen Houston jersey. You know what this represents? This little Knicks jersey represents? Ineptitude.
Yes.
Futility. How dare Tom Thibodeau go against the ethos of the New York Knicks and be good?
What a failure.
How dare he?
What a failure.
Look at this. None of this is successful.
We'll talk to Brad Crawford coming up in a little bit here, about actually 10 or 12 minutes. So stay tuned. And again, we're gonna put Brad on the spot with one question about the Gamecocks, maybe more, but one in particular.
I want to talk about the schedule.
Yeah. In the meantime, the brand new college football power index, the FPI. Later, you'll hear, not today, but later this season, you'll probably have some form of the EFPI. That's
always.
the Elijah Football Power Index.
I hijack all of ESPN's computers.
The EBPI, the Elijah Basketball Power Index, probably the most efficient.
Yes.
At what it does.
Most trustworthy.
Yeah. But here we go. You want me to go? Where do you want me to start? You want me to do like top 25?
Top 25.
One
standard.
Start with 1 or start with 25?
Oh, I love going up on these.
All right, so Nebraska's number 25. By the way, I guess I should do this real quick, just for the sake of the discussion. Virginia Tech is number 26, so you're going to get 25 plus 1.
Yes, the bonus.
Virginia Tech, who South Carolina opens with, is number 26. Nebraska's number 25. Arizona State, 24. Gamecock opponent, Missouri, 23. Arkansas is 22.
Hey, they'll be sneaky good.
Arkansas. Arkansas's projected win total is basically 6, but, good strength of schedule and all those kind of things. Kansas State is number 21. SMU, number 20. Southern Cal, number 19. Florida, 18. Michigan, 17. Oklahoma, 16. They'll be in Columbia later this season. The Gamecocks, number 15. Projected win total, 7.3. So there you go. Playoff chance, 20.3. Not bad.
1 in 5 chance for the playoffs. Pretty good.
Yeah. Auburn is number 14. Mississippi, number 13. Gamecocks go to Oxford. LSU, number 12. Gamecocks go to Baton Rouge. Clemson, number 11. Clemson comes here, of course, this season. Then we get into the top 10. Tennessee Volunteers, projected to go with 8.7 wins and a 38.5% chance to repeat as playoff participants. Miami Hurricanes, number 9. 9.7 win projection, 46.3% chance to make the playoff.
Wow.
Don't lose to the Qs.
Yeah, that's good advice. Don't lose to the Qs.
Be on their T-shirts.
Next year they go 1-11 with the only win against Syracuse. They took your advice.
And that keeps the Qs out of the playoff.
Full circle moment.
A&M number 8. Carolina goes to College Station. A&M projected to go. Wait for it. 8-4. Seriously.
8.1 to 4.1. Yeah.
Seriously, they're projected to go 8-4.
I am also projecting them to go 8-4.
Me too.
And next year.
Me too.
And the year after.
Yes.
And the year after that.
Keep it rolling.
Copy and paste, baby.
Notre Dame is number 7, not better than 9 wins projected. Oregon, number 6, right at 10 wins. Penn State, 10 wins as well. They're number 5. Ohio State, number 4. Alabama will be in Columbia. They're number 3, 9.6 projected wins, 66.2% chance to make the playoff. I think Alabama's going to be, listen, Alabama last year decided to take a game off, and it cost them. I don't know why they did it, but they did it. I don't even think they took the Vanderbilt game off. I think that one just caught them by surprise.
Vanderbilt played almost the perfect game.
Yeah. I don't think, I mean that sincerely. I don't think they took that day off. They just, again, what do I say all the time? I already said it once today. It's sports.
It happens.
Sometimes you lose.
Yep.
It's sometimes weird things happen. But they took the day off against Oklahoma. And that cost them. They didn't take the day off against Tennessee. Tennessee's pretty good. Tennessee beat them again.
That wasn't the first time in this decade they lost enough.
But Kalen DeBoer's teams in year 2 are good. He's got everything he wants in place. He's got his old, drinking buddy back. I kid when I say that, but his OC is back with him. They've got the quarterback they want. Not that they didn't like Jalen Milroe, but now they've got their guy. They've got him in the system, blah, 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 blah. They continue to recruit at a very high level. I think Alabama is going to be fine. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm a skeptic. I'm a Bama skeptic this offseason. I wasn't last year. I am this year.
Georgia is number 2. Bulldogs projected to basically win 10.1 games, 78.6% chance to make the college football playoff. And that means Texas is number 1. Expected to win the SEC again. 10.4 wins is their projection. And an 83.9% chance to make the playoff.
24 to win the national title.
Yeah, I was going to say 24 to win the title. Georgia at basically 18% to win the title. Alabama and Ohio State are at 10.8% each to win the national championship game. So Texas, from the computer perspective, and that's what this is basically looking at, an overwhelming favorite from that. The FPI, I'm going to read this to you, too. It's a measure of team strength. ESPN writes, it represents how many points above or below average a team is. Projected results are based on 20,000 simulations of the rest of the season using FPI results to date and the remaining schedule. Ratings and projections update daily, blah, blah, blah. So 20,000 simulations per week. Basically, once the week ends, on Sunday, they'll just run 20,000 simulations and then come up with a new FPI for the week.
That computer's running hot right now.
So this will basically stay the same, until the beginning of the season. I guess they could find some things. The lowest rated team, other than South Carolina State, of course, who's not in this, on the Gamecock schedule, is Coastal, who is at number 100. And then, let's see, I think, where was Vandy? Vandy's number 56. So they're the lowest conference game.
So tough.
I mean, it's a pretty tough schedule, man. Pretty tough schedule. Kentucky's number 34. Missouri is number 23. We mentioned them already. So, I mean, it's a pretty tough schedule, man. Most of Carolina's opponents are in the top 30. Only 3 of the 11 FBS schools are not. So,
in terms of teams in their schedule, ahead of them, Ole Miss, LSU, Clemson, A&M, Alabama.
Yep.
So 5 teams that.
And Oklahoma's right there with them.
And one spot behind them.
Yeah.
That's a real mystery box team right there.
Yeah. So
Oklahoma.
Again, this is information we're giving you. No opinions here. And the 20,000 computer simulations, whether it's one computer or 20,000 running one each, could not give to you-know-whats about how your favorite team does?
Nope. It just knows beep, beep, boop, boop, boop,
right.
Numbers. Makes the little, dial-up sound.
On the other hand, Brad Crawford is a real human. He's very good at analyzing college football, especially around these parts. And he will join us on the other side to talk Gamecocks and more. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Hey, what's missing from your summer nights? How about a great place to relax out back of the house? The ultimate way to enjoy your favorite music at the same time? Well, a brand new Bullfrog Spa can make that happen, and Griffin Pools and Spas is ready to help you out. Stop in to Griffin Pools and Spas. They're on Lake Murray Boulevard. They're right near the dam. They've been doing this for years and years. We have a lot of good times out there. But you can get in and test drive these spas. See for yourself what this would look like in your backyard or wherever you want to put it. And if you want a sound system included in there, they can make that happen for you as well. If you already have a pool or a spa, all the chemicals and accessories necessary to keep everything looking good and make it even more fun for you. So check in, see what they've got for you. Ready for a brand new pool, too? Hey, they can do that. That was a great time. And invite me and Elijah over. We'd love to come jump in your pool.
I'll cannonball right now.
Check them out. Check them out in person or at griffinpoolsandspas.com. Let's talk some Gamecock football, a little bit of thought around the Southeastern Conference as well. Always a pleasure to welcome on our buddy Brad Crawford, National College Football Analyst for 24/7 Sports. How are you, sir? Kids out of school yet? Like, is the house even rowdier than normal these days?
Jay, good to hear from you, man. It's been a busy early summer, man. We sold a house, bought a house. The kids are out of school. I've changed jobs officially. It's been a crazy last few months.
Well, glad you're stable. That's good. And kids, well, a couple of them can move some boxes around, right?
For sure, man.
Yeah,
we're finally settling in.
All right, that's good. That's good. Let's talk a little Gamecocks here. Elijah and I just went over the ESPN FPI that was released this morning. Gamecocks number 15 in the country, projected to win a little over 7 games. That's a computer projection, and we know the schedule is always going to be difficult. We were just talking. I think Oklahoma, Clemson, and Alabama are all going to be better on that schedule this year. Brad, What's a reasonable expectation at this point, knowing South Carolina won 9 games last year?
Well, can I plead the fifth until we see how they perform at Missouri in September?
Sure.
That's the big game for me.
Okay.
I think South Carolina wins that opener against Virginia Tech, has 2 home games after that, and then that first road game in September is going to show me a lot about this team. I know a lot of Gamecock fans look at this tough schedule and kind of see those first 5 weeks as, man, if they start 5-0 inside the top 10, they got a real shot. But you can't overlook Missouri. The first road game is going to tell me a lot.
Brad, the conference this year, I feel like from the quarterback position has taken a step up because you had a lot of guys that were first-year starters last year that were able to develop throughout the season. And I think really, in my personal opinion, at least from the top down, it's better. It's improved from just last year to this year. And with the season Lenoris had, especially in the last 6 weeks of the year, you saw him take off, and he's now the subject of a lot of talk, including, the magic H word, the Heisman.
Sure.
But where would you kind of put Lenoris in that hierarchy of SEC quarterbacks right now, given the amount of talent in the league and some of the unknowns that we have, including like Austin Simmons and Ty Simpson and Arch Manning for a full year?
Yeah, I think at worst, seeing what Lenoris did those last 6 starts would probably be 3 behind Garrett Nussmeier, who I consider to be the top pick in next year's draft at LSU, and Arch Manning. I know we haven't seen as much of Arch Manning as we have Lenoris Sellers, but I do trust that Texas has a ton of weapons, and they've spent a lot of money this offseason to make sure that offense, despite losing players to the NFL draft, is going to be elite. I mean, if Lenoris Sellers had some of the receivers that LSU and Texas do, then I think he might be the Heisman frontrunner, not just being one of the favorites. So I'm looking forward, though, to seeing how Lenoris Sellers develops as a second-year starter for the Gamecocks. I think the Mike Shula offense is going to cater to his strengths. I don't think we're going to see Lenoris run as much as he did last season based on what they have behind him, but I do think that Sellers, this Gamecock offense is going to go as far as Sellers takes it, and if they can protect him or not.
I know you know Josh Pate pretty well. He on one of his recent shows, he was doing top 5 returning quarterbacks, and he mentioned Lenoris and a few others, but didn't put him in the top 5 list. And it wasn't a knock, he said, on Lenoris as much as the concern about the wide receiving core and the depth right there, Brad. What more have you? I mean, look, we know what Nick Harbor's about. We saw Mazio Bennett take a couple of nice steps. They've recruited well there, but how big an unknown is that, A, and B, to come back around to your answer to Elijah, how much does that factor in to the overall evaluation of Lenoris Sellers and this offense?
I think it certainly factors in. I mean, you look over at Clemson, Cade Klubnik has 3 potential, early round draft picks at wide receiver, and South Carolina has a bunch of true freshmen that they're going to rely on this year outside of Nick Harbor. So if I'm Lenoris Sellers, obviously I'm comfortable with what I have in the wide receiver room, but there's a lot of unproven talent there, Jay. I'm surprised that South Carolina did not go into the portal, especially post-spring. After watching the spring game, I wasn't all that impressed with the wide receiver core. Several guys made plays, namely Malik Clark. He's a guy who's going to be a first-year impact guy. But I just think South Carolina could have used NIL money this offseason to maybe go get a high-profile wide receiver. Penn State was another program that did that, and they were able to sign, a top-end guy in April. The Gamecocks did not. But to Shane Beamer's credit, he has recruited the portal well, and he knows that wide receiver room better than anybody. And Shane has said throughout spring and after spring practice that they feel good about the 5 or 7 guys who are going to see the field at that position this season.
Yeah, and they've got a couple of tight ends they like, too. Also, Donovan Murph is coming in this summer. Now, again, another true freshman, but highly rated, could have gone almost anywhere. Do you believe that might have been a factor in why they didn't go into the portal? Do they almost see that as a 50-50, Brad?
I think they do. There's been a lot of hype behind Donovan Murph. Obviously, going from high school to SEC over about 15 fall practices is going to be tough. And, there's a reason that there's not many 1,000-yard true freshman receivers in SEC history. But if Donovan Murph can come in and have 30 catches, 500 yards, and they kind of have that by committee approach within that wide receiver room, I do think they're going to be okay at that position. The big question is the development of Nick Harbor. Is he going to be a wide receiver one? I've seen him in a lot of first-round mocks. I don't see a first-round talent out there yet out of Nick, but maybe that changes here in a few months.
Braddock, I want to go back to one of your responses earlier when talking about South Carolina's schedule, because I find a couple of games on there that are intriguing. I might be leaning South Carolina in those games, but they're intriguing. Like Missouri is intriguing because it's a road game with a new quarterback who showed a lot of promise at Penn State. And I still don't know what to make of Oklahoma. So I'm kind of pivoting to Oklahoma as well. John Mateer is certainly an interesting player to come in and take over at quarterback. This is a program that is accustomed to a lot more success than they've had with Brent Venables as head coach. What do you kind of make of them right now when they come into Columbia here this year?
Yeah, that October schedule, man, it starts with that bye week, and then you go to LSU, you host Oklahoma, host Alabama, and then November 1st you play at Ole Miss. If South Carolina can find a way to go 3-1 over that, 4-game murderer's row, I do think that this is going to be a team that can get to the playoff for the first time in program history. Now, you mentioned Oklahoma. They're going to be a team that's a lot more potent offensively than I think Missouri. If the Gamecocks were playing Oklahoma in Week 4, I think fans should be a little bit more worried than playing Missouri, because I do think Oklahoma is going to be a much improved football team, not only with Mateer, but they also brought his OC with them from Washington State, Ben Arbuckle, and they got Jay Knott, a guy that had 1,300 yards rushing 2 years ago at Cal. So Oklahoma has spent money this offseason, just like LSU has. That LSU, fellas, is the team that I've kind of put all my stock in the SEC this summer, and I really think that this is going to be the best LSU team we've seen since 2019.
Brad Crawford with us here at 24/7 Sports, college football analyst. All right, I'm kind of up against it. You might need a little time here, and we can follow up. So let me go ahead. We told the audience we're gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah,
but you can handle it. You can handle it. What is the toughest game on South Carolina's schedule?
I think the toughest game on South Carolina's schedule is the Rhodey in Death Valley on October 11th. We don't know what time that game is. I'm sure the SEC will do South Carolina solid and have it at 8:15 under the lights in Baton Rouge. But that's the toughest game for me. Despite coming out of a bye, I know St. Beamer's got a pretty good record with the Gamecocks after an open date. That's the game for me that I think the loser of that game will not make the playoff from the SEC. So if South Carolina can go to LSU and win, then, man, the hype going toward the second half of the schedule in Columbia will be real.
So I'm with you. I felt that. In fact, I told Elijah this morning I think that's the toughest game as well. Yeah. We were going to give you a choice of Alabama, Clemson, LSU, but we kind of figured that you might say what you said, so we just let you answer it on your own. But how much of a distance, Brad, with Bama and Clemson being games at Williams-Brice, how much of a distance might there be between those games? And is there anything in between LSU, Clemson, and Alabama when it comes to toughest games on the schedule?
I think the Gamecocks, Jay, are going to go 2-1 against LSU, Bama, and Clemson. Now, the games that worry me are the other road games that really don't, I guess, sound the alarms. At Missouri, at Ole Miss, at A&M, a place Gamecocks have never won. Kyle Field's a different animal, and right. I know the Gamecocks blew out the Aggies last year, but I'm sure Marcel Reed hadn't forgotten about that.
Yeah. Last thing for you, we were going to have you on about, a month ago, and you went to an air show with your father. I know you're big into that. Take us through. I remember going to one of those as a kid one time and seeing the old Thunderbirds, but how often do you do these kind of things?
Yeah, me and Dad go to 2 or 3 air shows every spring. We travel to them around the Carolinas, up and down the East Coast. F-22 is my favorite plane. F-18 is my dad's. That's a Navy jet. And, Blue Angels and Thunderbirds, man, are usually the headliners. Now, the reason we go to these, though, is my dad's retired Department of Defense. So we get to go to the DOD day and, behind the scenes and meet the pilots and all that. So it's a lot of fun.
I don't know how far – you're not too far, I think, from like the Cherry Grove, North Myrtle Beach area, at least as the crow flies.
I've been to those for sure.
Yeah, and they on July 4th, my good friend John Folsom and a group of his friends for years have put together Salute from the Shore.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait this year for it.
Yeah, that's a good time. So that's about as close as I get to big-time air shows anymore. But looking forward to doing that again this July 4th. Appreciate you as always, man. Good luck with the finishing up of the move and the kids at home for the summer. I remember those days. We'll holler at you here soon. We'll see you in Atlanta for media days, if not anytime
I'll see you
soon.
then, man.
All right, bud.
Yeah, buddy.
That's Brad Crawford. B Crawford 247 to follow along on Twitter. Good stuff. LSU, I agree.
Yeah, I thought he would go that way,
yeah,
and that probably is.
Well, I think it is.
And I agree with him, though, in terms of this being maybe the best LSU team since they won it all.
Yeah.
I think offensively, if the defense can just be average, that team can win 10 games.
I agree.
I
think they have the quarterback for it, for sure.
And they invested in the weapons, brother. They brought in a lot of talent.
Speaking of Gamecock football, Elijah quizzes me on the other side. You're listening to the Postgame Show. 9 minutes in front of 4 o'clock here on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Thanks to Brad Crawford for joining us. Brad's such a good dude. Look forward to seeing him next month over in Atlanta for Media Days.
It's going to be so nice.
Y'all come on over.
Just drive to Atlanta.
Yeah, y'all come on over. Come to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Going to Dallas. Dallas was fine, though.
That was
fun.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was fun.
I enjoyed that.
But a more convenient travel plan is...
I didn't enjoy our return home.
You mean you didn't like trying to pull an all-nighter at the Charlotte airport?
No, I did not. But at least we got to the Charlotte airport.
Which was a close call in itself.
Because my good friend Daisy Miller, who owns Forest Lake Travel and got us over there and back, basically told me that next day that had we not gotten to Charlotte, we would have been in Dallas till Saturday.
Ooh.
In the airport. Because I don't think the company would have paid for us to go get a hotel.
Yeah, that would have been a nightmare. Oh, buddy.
Maybe Langston would have come and gotten us, though.
Maybe. Langston would. I know he would.
We could sleep out back.
That's right. I'll sleep in the backyard.
Yeah. I've done worse.
Yeah, I'll sleep on grass.
As far as you know.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely slept in more uncomfortable situations, that's for sure.
All right, so little quiz time here.
Yes.
My knowledge of Gamecock football.
Your memory, mostly, of Gamecock football. I'm sure you remember the afternoon of November 25th, 2006 very well.
November 25, 2006. That would be a win in Clemson.
That would be a win in Clemson for win number 7 on the season. But do you remember if Blake Mitchell threw for over/under 270.5 passing yards in that 31-28 win?
Let's go over.
He says over. It's slightly under. 268 is what he threw for. Somehow not resulting in any touchdown passes. He did throw 3 picks, but he completed 64% of his passes and threw for 268.
Okay.
The 3 picks didn't hurt.
I don't know if I was thinking maybe like 280.
Close.
Yeah.
Close.
Well.
I liked your optimism.
Thank you.
Now, Corey Boyd had himself a fantastic season there.
Yeah.
Did he rush for over/under 99.5 rushing yards? Did he break the century?
I should know if he had a 100-yard day, I just, oh man, did he? Let's say over. Did he like a buck, buck 05 or something?
You were close with your guess, a $106.
Okay.
So it was over.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right.
On the board here is Jay Phillips.
1 for 2.
My personal favorite South Carolina Gamecock football player of all time, Sidney Rice.
Oh.
Did he go over/under 99.5 receiving yards?
Oh, man. All right. So you said 268 was the total. So that means that Sidney would have had to have gotten over a third with that number. Let's say slightly under.
He says slightly under. It was actually slightly over.
Oh.
He got 103.
Wow.
8 catches for 103 yards.
I remember him
Sidney
having a big
Rice.
day. But, yeah, man, he was good.
He was awesome.
He was good.
And maybe one of the most reliable NFL receivers. In terms of being reliable.
Again,
Always
Carolina
reliable.
fans got really lucky to have Sidney and then a couple of years later have Alshon. I mean, 2 of the most glue-handed receivers to play the game. And throw him the ball.
One of the greatest names in the history of college football, Captain Munnerlyn, over/under 4.5 tackles.
Let's go over.
Slightly under, right at 4.
Captain was, he was a 2-star coming out, I think, from Mobile.
Maybe.
He
was awesome.
He turned himself into a heck of a SEC and NFL player. Hour 2 coming up. 4 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Second hour of the Postgame Show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios, downtown Columbia, South Carolina, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. Thanks again to Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports, joining us, talking a little Gamecock football in the last hour. That'll be up on the YouTube page in just a bit. And our buddy Jordan Kaye on the beat for the state paper will join us in about 15 minutes. He had an interview with Jeremiah Donati in the last few days talking about Gamecock baseball, the direction of the program, even some comments on our good friend John Whittle's piece on Gamecock baseball and exactly how things devolved into the worst season for this program, certainly in the SEC era, and basically it feels like since the metal bat era.
Yeah, or if you want to go back really, really far, you can go back to 1895. They went winless. Yeah. They only played one game, though.
Yeah. I mean, again, you go too far and you could find things, but in seasons where they've played 50-plus games. And
they didn't have a coach that year. They had no coach from 1892 to 1902, the coachless decade. Everybody knows this, the coachless decade.
Player coach.
Baseball.
He was the player coach back then.
Was it a professor?
Maybe. Speaking of college baseball, real quick, we got a few things to get into before we talk to Jordan. By now, most of you have heard or seen what Kevin O'Sullivan did on Sunday over in Conway at the regional, just absolutely berating a couple of coastal officials and NCAA site representatives. Kevin, was very upset about having the Florida ECU game moved from noon until 1 p.m. I got more clarification today on why a lot of those things happened. So let me tell you, basically going back to Saturday, ESPN wanted Florida on television, but the only slot they had available for Florida on television was 3 p.m., and it was against Fairfield, but they wanted it at 3 p.m. Well, then Florida goes out and scores, 17 runs on Fairfield, and the game took like 4 hours. And ECU and Coastal were going to play in the winner's bracket game, that night. And I think that game was supposed to start at 7. But it didn't end up starting until like 8 or so-ish. And they ran a little long. So they didn't get done until after midnight. And so it was decided that the game the next day would start an hour later just to give ECU a little more time. That hour, you may say, what's an hour? Well, an hour could either be looked at as an extra hour of sleep or the hour that they need just to get from the ballpark to the hotel and settle in. Whatever you want to look at that hour. An hour can be logistically supportive if you do it right? If you utilize your hour. And we had somebody also close to the regional yesterday tell us that basically Kevin O'Sullivan maybe didn't find out in time, or somebody on his staff did know and told the players, but somehow it wasn't relayed to the coach. I was told today, nah, everybody knew. He just decided he wanted to go take it out on people. So today, he has issued an apology. Quote, prior to yesterday's NCAA tournament game against East Carolina, I let my emotions get the best of me and channeled that energy in a way I should not have. I want to sincerely apologize for my actions and behavior to the entire NCAA regional field of Coastal Carolina, East Carolina, and Fairfield, the NCAA, including site representatives Rich French and Mark Scaff, as well as all of Gator Nation. I did not represent the University of Florida to the appropriate standard yesterday, and I take full responsibility for that and promise to learn from this experience and be better moving forward. I appreciate all of the tireless efforts on behalf of host Coastal Carolina, their tournament director, Brian Stiles, and the NCAA over the course of the NCAA regionals, and I'm sorry for allowing this instance to get in the way of an otherwise great weekend of postseason baseball. If you haven't seen it yet, Kevin O'Sullivan was filmed kind of, just behind the field, kind of a plaza area. I'm not really sure exactly positionally where that
looked like it was like beyond the outfield.
Yeah.
Like where the team would kind of
where the team would come in or, things like that. Yeah. You might bring equipment in through one of the, that kind of area. And it's just F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb. And, I mean, it's like continuous F-bombs. And he also apparently berated another East Carolina staffer. And now I'm told, and I think you learned some more about this too, for no real apparent reason other than to just be a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently it was a kid who just like said, hey.
Yeah. Oh, you would you like to hear from that kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have the audio of his firsthand account of his interaction with Kevin O'Sullivan during his very happy weekend.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I walked into, all right, so we entered on the first base side, but we were in the third base dugout that game, and we were entering, and I was holding the quad board, which obviously but it's the big whiteboard, and I was holding it walking in, and he was already, cussing out some of our guys that had already walked by. And all the coaches had already walked by as well, but he started cussing at Zayak and Gabe Beschloss, but they didn't really acknowledge it. Really, they had headphones on and were kind of in their zone. And then I walk around the corner, and he's the first person I saw. I'm like, "Good morning, Coach. How you doing?"
Just being good guy Parker. Just being good guy Parker.
Yeah, because, I mean, I heard about all the stuff that happened, and, I was trying not to picture him as a bad dude. I was like, it's a bad situation.
Give him grace.
Maybe not his fault. Yeah, literally. And then I turned the corner. I saw him. I said that. He's like, F you. You can stick that whiteboard up your F&A.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, holy. My reaction was, are you serious?
My reaction hearing that is,
"You're a monster."
Wow, that's ECU staffer Parker Bird. Yikes! And again, I got an account from someone who works at Coastal that he was berating everybody. And you and I said yesterday, look, I'm not here to be overly judgmental or sanctimonious in any way. I promise. Again, I can cuss with the best of them, and many of you out there can, and many of you don't like to cuss. Many of you may fall in between. Some of you may be like Mark Richt, where the worst thing that Mark Richt ever says is bull crap, literally, bull crap. But in a professional setting, when you are speaking with people that you know are paid to do a certain job, even however angry you may be, and even if it's sports, if you've seen the video of Kevin O'Sullivan doing this,
buddy,
You can't do that in that setting. And so for him to say, I did not represent the university to the appropriate standard. No, you blew past the appropriate standard going, 100 in a 55.
Yeah, no bleep, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, especially considering this was what his response was when he was asked about it after that game.
Coach, could you address the situation before the game?
I don't want to address that right now.
Nothing there, apology or anything like that?
I handled it properly.
You handled
at the end of the game, yes.
I handled it properly.
Yeah, I handled it. Yeah, no, bro.
I don't think you did.
Not even a little bit.
Handled it properly.
Scott Strickland is the Florida AD. He also issued a statement yesterday. It said, I met with Kevin O'Sullivan and told him his actions prior to yesterday's NCAA tournament game fell well short of expectations of how Gators treat people. How about just how people treat people, I might add.
Gators don't treat people very well if you are very familiar with the work of an alligator.
Yeah. Well,
Took Captain Hook's hand.
If you hack them off, right?
Yeah.
One of our department's core values, Scott Strickland said, is respect. And Coach O'Sullivan's unacceptable actions failed to demonstrate that. On behalf of Florida Athletics, I want to personally apologize to everyone impacted, including NCAA representatives, Coastal Carolina and their staff, East Carolina and their team, as well as to Gator Nation. So, all right. They've apologized. Kevin O'Sullivan's not getting fired. I doubt he gets fired. I mean, I don't know if Florida handles anything like that internally. It was incredibly embarrassing, certainly, for the University of Florida. And, how much of it is just, Kevin O'Sullivan, venting his frustrations. I don't know. I mean, look, his team won the game, the last game that before they had played, because that tirade was before the East Carolina-Florida game.
Before they got beat down by East Carolina.
Yeah, they lost by 7 and were eliminated. Yeah. But, so they had lost on day 1. They won on day 2, and this was day 3. And that winner, of course, was going to play Coastal. Coastal ends up beating East Carolina. Coastal, by the way, on to the Auburn Super Regional. We'll talk more about the Supers here in just a sec. But it was an embarrassing look for Florida. And again, a Florida team that I think a lot of us, and I said yesterday, I'll say it again today, raise my hand. I thought Florida would win that regional. I thought they were playing really good baseball. I know Coastal's really good. I know East Carolina's really good. So it didn't surprise me that East Carolina beat Florida. I wasn't like, oh, wow. It wasn't one of those. And I'm not surprised Coastal won their home regional. Coastal's really good. There's a lot of people who believe that maybe Coastal is better than a 13 seed, that they maybe should have been a top 8. That's more debatable, and the metrics and the computers factor into that, the RPI and stuff like that. And the Sun Belt is a good league, no doubt. It's a really good league.
Baseball league.
Yeah. But anyway, and to that end, I think of the 8 road teams this weekend, I like Coastal's opportunity, I think, the best at Auburn. It's really close between them and FSU going out to Oregon State.
Yeah, I think FSU beats Oregon State. I feel good about that.
But I like Coastal's opportunity at Auburn. The Supers look like this, by the way. The Friday through Sunday Supers are Miami at Louisville, FSU at Oregon State, Arizona at North Carolina, excuse me, and Coastal at Auburn. Saturday through Monday, Texas San Antonio at UCLA. Or again, the fun way to say it is UTSA at UCLA.
Yes.
Murray State at Duke. If you had Murray State at Duke as a super regional, please call me now. I want to ask you things like lottery numbers, stock picks.
Well, if that person exists and they called you, what you should do is immediately question the credibility because they'd be lying to you.
West Virginia at LSU, and Tennessee at Arkansas. So the Southeastern Conference and the Atlantic Coast Conference are guaranteed one participant each because they have one super against each other. But it also means the SEC can only get 3 teams into the College World Series. And based on what you and I both just said, I think they'll get 2.
Yeah.
I think LSU will win their home series. West Virginia's good. They won 45 games.
It's no gimme.
The good baseball team. But I think LSU will win. And I think Arkansas will beat Tennessee, but I'm not going to be surprised if Tennessee beats Arkansas. And it is kind of a bummer for some to say, man, Tennessee and Arkansas can't both go. Well, they were already paired up, so they did that, and you knew that in advance.
We knew that in advance.
Yeah.
It's not a heartbreaker for anybody.
Yeah, that's where that is. Speaking of college baseball and Carolina baseball in particular, our buddy Jordan Kaye on the beat for the state newspaper spoke recently with Jeremiah Donati, the new Gamecock athletics director. Well, he's not really new anymore, but newish. But, what more did Jordan learn in speaking with Jeremiah about the state of affairs of Carolina baseball? We'll talk with him when the postgame show returns. 18 minutes after 4 o'clock here. Turn the microphone on, Phillips. It works better.
I've learned that, yes.
Most of the time.
That if I want to be heard, I have to turn the microphone on.
Most of the time. Well,
inconvenient at times.
If I yell really loud, they could probably pick me up on your mic. But I'd probably.
Well, that would also require me to have my mic on, too.
See what you did there.
So this ultimately becomes a team effort.
Let's turn it back into something professional, or at least a close resemblance. We welcome back onto the program our buddy Jordan Kaye on the Gamecock beat for the state newspaper. Appreciate you, sir. I know you've recently here, just to set everybody up, for those who just tuned in, had a conversation with Jeremiah Donati about the state of affairs of South Carolina baseball. Were there any surprises from your perspective, being a guy on the beat? How forthcoming did you feel like the AD was when it comes to the current state of affairs?
I thought he was, pretty forthcoming. I think he's had conversations with Paul Maneri, and, some might disagree, but he feels that Paul, as a Hall of Fame coach, deserves more time to get this thing going, and kind of looks towards when Paul was hired last year. He came in June. The transfer portal had already kind of been up and running, and Jeremiah kind of mentioned, he hasn't had yet a full, year to kind of show what he can do, and wasn't able to get his pick of the litter last year in the transfer portal. Whether you want to believe that, is another thing, but it does make sense. The timing is tough, and any coach who comes in late and doesn't have a jump on the portal is going to be at a huge disadvantage. So, that I think is a very valid thing. And, Jeremiah kind of also mentioned it. Hey, what kind of message does it send future coaches who come to South Carolina if we say, hey, you have one bad season and we're going to fire you? It's not exactly a look, and he kind of mentioned in the story, we're not here doing one-year tryouts. We've got to try and support him and get the program running. And, from here, now it's kind of on Paul to get things in the right direction.
Yeah, you mentioned them not having one-year tryouts. They're going to give them time to kind of rectify the situation, but that's going to take a lot of work in itself, and it's going to require a lot of resources kind of being thrown at the baseball program this offseason to fix it. How much of a sense did you get that they're going to be able to do that differently than what it was last year? Because obviously you mentioned the late jump in the transfer portal, but now I guess with a full offseason, they expect things to be a little bit different. But how much more do you think they're going to be able to kind of give in terms of resources to this program to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much more resources they're going to be able to allocate. I will say the one thing is, last year, a lot of South Carolina's roster, they had signed a lot of those guys to contracts before, Paul got there, and kind of in that mode. So they had a lot of their money in guys returning. This year, I think, as you've seen with a lot of the guys transferring out, they've got all that NIL money, or a lot of it, to give to transfers, to lure guys from the portal. So that's a little bit of a different dynamic of, they might have a little bit more NIL money, but even if it's the same, they're going to have more to give to transfer portal guys, just because you don't have to pay, the Ethan Petries and the stars returning. A big thing, like Jeremiah wanted to point out, is that South Carolina has never paid for its baseball players to have summer tuition. So basically, you think of a football player, they don't arrive on campus on August 1st. They get on campus in late May, early June, and basically part of their scholarship includes summer classes. It allows them to enroll in the summer so they can get a head start on the strength and conditioning program. That hasn't been the case in South Carolina baseball, and so I guess this is going to be the first year that they're going to pay for tuition for the summer. So all those newcomers and freshmen will be able to enroll, I guess, this summer versus in August. So that's a little bit of a head start, and kind of one of those lesser-known ways that you can add resources to a program to help out.
That's interesting. I mean, they do, some of them play in the Coastal Plain League or the Cape Cod League or things like that. But, yeah, and things are certainly different. Jordan Kaye with us here from the state newspaper. I know it's delicate, but you did it, and I'm glad you did. And that was asking Jeremiah about a report from John Whittle on how and why the South Carolina baseball program had such an historically bad season. And I'd like you to go into a little more detail on what you learned about his and the, I suppose, programs and athletic department's response to what John reported.
Yeah, there wasn't much of a response. I was a little surprised there wasn't more, kind of them getting out in front of it or acknowledging some of the things. And based on kind of what Jeremiah said is some of it was overblown, and it's not kind of all what it's cracked up to be. And he kind of referenced, hey, look at kind of some of the things that Ethan Petrie and Roman Kimball put out on Twitter, and them showing their support for Paul and the program. And you can look at that, I guess, and think that's a good vote of confidence. So, yeah, it was a little delicate, and I respect John a ton and haven't heard, much against it. But, it seemed like, Jeremiah was kind of seemed to think, after talking with people, that some of it was a little more than it seemed, or a little less than it seemed in John's story. And, he feels confident that Paul is a guy who's going to be able to right the ship. And I remember talking to some of the guys at LSU who Paul was there with his first year, and a lot of those guys kind of said some similar things that I saw in, like, John's story. I mean, he's a tough coach. Like, he's very hard on his players, and that's not like a new thing. That was something that happened at LSU plenty, where he'll tell guys like, you suck, or, you turned a double play like crap. This is terrible. Stuff like that. I mean, that's just like who he is as a coach. And I mean, it's going to rub people the wrong way. I know it rubbed a ton of people the wrong way at LSU, and like, it's not surprising if it does rub people the wrong way at South Carolina.
Well, I think that's the one thing about that type of coaching, right? Like, some people can put up with it if you're winning, because the result is you're winning and everybody's happy whenever they win. And I guess it does make a whole lot of sense for the mood to be as sour as it was when you are 6-24 in conference play and you're losing some of the games in the manner in which they did. And I think that certainly does explain it. But at the same time, too, I mean, it was pretty much a disaster from all angles. And how much of a sense, I guess, do you get that certain things that might have been alluded to in that article can change as it pertains to maybe approach to handling players?
I don't know that much. I think that's kind of a thing of, based on kind of what Paul did at LSU, is it's kind of like, hey, buy in. Like, here's how we're going to do things, and, we need you to buy in order for this program to be successful. And, like, Jeremiah kind of pointed it out. Like, to his credit, it's worked at, like, a lot of different places. Worked at Air Force, it worked at Notre Dame, it worked at LSU. Does it work in the NIL transfer portal era? Like, that was a big question even Paul had when he took the job. And I still think, the jury's out on that. You got to give him a couple of years to say, will this type of coaching work with the players in 2025 who can enter the transfer portal at any time and who are being lured by NIL money? I remember talking to Paul when he got the job, and he's like, that's kind of the question I want to have answered. Some people will say, well, this year proved it doesn't work. I think you probably got to give them another year or so to to get the verdict on that. But I don't see them changing too much, just in terms of, how they talk or whatever, or work with guys. Perhaps there are some individual cases where it's like, hey, maybe this guy takes this type of coaching better.
Jordan, last thing for you for today. In your conversation, Jeremiah, and I'll just kind of paraphrase it here to be quick for the audience, said, hey, we got to remember where the program has been the last few years relative to what people always want it to be. And one of the things I've said, not so much to push back, is, 2 years ago, this was a 1-seed program. Last year, a 2-seed that did win a game in the NCAA tournament. This was not a dumpster fire type situation. Do you get a sense that there is a resetting of program expectation in an overall sense from the athletics department right now? Or is this a temporary, we just need to get it fixed, and, yeah, we know we want supers in Omaha and beyond?
I think it's the latter. I think more of what he was saying in that is over the last 8 years, like South Carolina has like the 10th or 12th or something winning percentage in the SEC. This is not like a program who was, going to Omaha, every other year over the last 12 years. This is a program that has gone to the Super Regionals 3 times since Ray Tanner became athletic director. And I think Jeremiah's point was it was somewhat silly to think that you could just bring a coach in and year one they're going to go to the Omaha. Some fans might want to disagree, but it's happened. I'm sure when Chad Holbrook was hired and when Mark Kingston was hired, there were probably fans who felt the same way that, hey, this coach should be able to get to Omaha right away or within a couple of years. And I think what Jeremiah is kind of alluding to is, hey, we need to build this and let the coach be able to kind of build his foundation the way he wants and to build this into a thing, and not think that, a year or two ago, this was a program that was, on the verge of winning a national championship. Like you're saying with the Supers and 2 years ago against Florida, some might disagree with that. But since Ray Tanner left, this has been a far different program. And I don't think it's Jeremiah trying to set the expectations lower that, hey, South Carolina shouldn't expect these things. I just think he's saying that, hey, we need some patience to get it back there.
Jordan, good stuff, man. Appreciate the time. Good get on that interview. We'll talk to you here real soon. Appreciate you.
Thanks, fellas. Have a great day.
That's Jordan Kaye. It's K with an E, Jordan Kaye _23 to follow along on Twitter, thestate.com. We'll talk a little more about this on the other side.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to report to you. They're causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We do have a disabled vehicle that has blocked the center lane on I-26 westbound just before South Carolina 202 and exit 65. Another disabled vehicle is causing a traffic backup on Gervais Street at Hugh G. Street here downtown. We have an accident in Hampton Street at Sumter Street, another one on Hunter's Blind Drive at Beaver Dam Road, and another disabled vehicle causing more issues at Rabun Road near Ross Road. And lastly, an accident has just been reported on Weed Drive at South Carolina 6 and North Lake Drive.
Talking some Gamecock baseball. Thanks again to Jordan Kaye for joining us. Jordan talking to Jeremiah Donati the other day about the state of affairs of Carolina baseball. And, you know, the question there to end the interview that I asked about a resetting of expectation. Look, I don't think anybody, when there's a first-year coach, just, you know, expects. You should never, I don't care what kind of program you are. You know, if you expect to go to Omaha every year, you're probably ending up just hurting yourself as much as anything else. I mean, if nothing else, look at the results from this weekend. I mean, what we had 3 national seeds go down, right? Top 1, 2, and what was Georgia? What was Georgia? 6?
Georgia was.
Or no, they weren't. LSU 6, but Georgia was a national seed.
Yeah, they were a national seed.
And, you know, a number of hosts, you know, went down. So, anyway, but expecting certain levels of success is perfectly fine. And I don't think anybody should have expected South Carolina to go from 13 conference wins to 6.
No. Oh, God, no. Especially in the manner in which it happened.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to lose 24 of your 30 conference games. It's another to have and lose those games and they be like 1-run games or 2-run games.
Yeah.
Or
I say that a lot. Yeah. Tell me how you lost. Right.
I mean, there are teams that go through 30-game stretches where they lose a lot, but they're competitive, right? And it's still, at the end of the day, it's still a failure. At the end of the day, you're still 6-24, and that's what your record is, and your place in the standings would have been earned. But at the same time, there could be signs of growth throughout the season that would make you feel better about the next year, right? I think in a year in which you had one of your worst ERAs since you joined the SEC, when you lost the amount of run roll games you did, when you gave up 15-plus runs in the amount of games you did, and when you
gave up 20 twice.
Right. When you kind of fall apart in that manner, it's different than just 6-24. I mean, we went over the statistics ad nauseum to really portray that this team this year might have been worse than what their record actually indicated. So, I mean, that's kind of why we're at where we're at right now. It's not just that you went 6-24 in the SEC. It's how you went 6-24.
And so, you know, and again, I ask that of where, you know, Jeremiah may fall. And I'm not thinking that Jeremiah says, hey, listen, just as long as you get to the tournament, you know, but that the point that I'm trying to make is Mark Kingston was, and again, let me make sure everybody understands. I'm not here to say Mark shouldn't have been fired. That's not what I'm saying. But you were a 1 seed who advanced to a super regional in 2023. You were a 2 seed last year who won one of your games in your regional up in Raleigh. You know, and Mark was fired because that standard's not good enough. And, you know, look, we've talked about it. You know, how much responsibility does Ray Tanner have for the slide that the baseball program has taken? The answer is some. Most, no. Players and coaches have to go do it. But when you see some of the writing on the wall, what could have been done to prevent some of this? Yeah, that's a lot harder to answer. But he was the athletics director, and he was the championship baseball coach. And so it's right for people, I think, to say, hey, how much of this does Ray bear? But, this was not a floundering program in the sense that it wasn't making the playoffs. And I was speaking to somebody this morning. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the last time Carolina missed the playoffs in back-to-back years was like the last year of Coach Raines and the first year of Coach Tanner. Now, you've missed it a few times here since, and that's virtually unacceptable at South Carolina. But I have said, and I'll repeat again for those of you who don't hear me say this or haven't heard me say this, my expectation going into any given Gamecock baseball season is that South Carolina should host in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. They're not always going to do that, and they may not even do it most of the time. But there's every reason, in my opinion, to believe that you can and should, because you have the resources and you have the pedigree. Now, a lot more schools in the SEC have gotten really, really good at baseball of late. Kentucky has been to the World Series. Tennessee is the reigning national champion. Arkansas has remained good. Vandy, despite their loss the other day. And look, Elijah and I were just talking. I think in some of the losses for Southeastern Conference teams this week, especially for the 1 and 2 seeds, Vandy, number 1 overall seed,
yeah.
Texas, number 2 overall seed. I'll just call it like I see it. I think there's a level of arrogance in their play.
Mm-hmm.
I think they showed up and said, whatever. See y'all in Omaha.
Yep. And
it doesn't work that way, man.
It doesn't. And the SEC had a little bit of an issue with that this past weekend. So there, 9 teams got bounced over the weekend. 9, right? 5 of those losses on the elimination losses for SEC teams came against teams from conferences that are not in the Power 4.
Yeah.
Here's the list of conferences that knocked out SEC teams this weekend. The Horizon League.
That's Wright State, right?
Yep. The Missouri Valley Conference.
Who's that?
Murray State.
Murray State.
The Sun Belt.
Who, by the way, Murray State's in the Supers.
Yeah. Murray State is playing for a chance to go to Omaha. Yeah. And John Morant's not walking through that door.
He's not walking through that door.
Nor Popeye Jones. The Sun Belt. Southern Miss taking out Alabama.
Yeah.
The ACC, because Florida State, North Carolina took out Mississippi State and Oklahoma. The AAC, because East Carolina took out Florida twice. Mm. The Conference USA, who took out your regular season champion, Texas, by beating them twice. Oklahoma State, the Big 12, taking out Georgia, and the Big 12 again with West Virginia, Kentucky. 5 out of those 9 are not in the Power 4. Yeah. They do not have the resources, the NIL money. Insert anything about resource here, and they took you to the woodshed.
I think I saw UTSA had $800,000 in NIL dollars, and Texas had like $9 million.
$9 million. Yeah.
That's crazy. So again, yes, it has gotten a lot harder, I'm not going to personally, not that it matters what I do or don't do. I'm just some dude on the radio. But I did grow up around here, and I have been going to these games a long time. And I did go to school here, and I do give a crap. I give a few craps, if you wanted me to be perfectly honest with you. And I try not to wear any fandom on my sleeve while I'm on the air, but I'm not going to hide from it at the same time. And I just don't want to see this school let go of an expectation level that has been built over time and has been earned. And that's why I say this was not a program. We had somebody call the other day and say, well, the program was a dumpster fire. No, it wasn't. It wasn't as good as you want it to be because there aren't any trips to Omaha of late. And that's a legit gripe. But you were a 1 seed and a 2 seed in the last 2 tournaments before this season. This was not a floundering, devastated program that had completely lost its way. This year it looked like it lost its way. And how quickly can you turn that around in a league, despite the lack of this year's postseason success, where 13 of your schools were invited into the NCAA tournament? That's a Mount Everest-type climb, man.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
Hope you got a good Sherpa.
You should go read Into Thin Air. Prepare yourself. Great book.
We'll see what happens. All right, come back on the other side. A little J or nay on this Tuesday. All right, let's do it. Welcome back in. Postgame Show rolling on here on a Tuesday afternoon. Coming up top of the hour, headlines of the day. Really cool news for a Gamecock athlete. Tell you about that in the top of the hour headlines, amongst other things. Revisit a little bit of our conversation with Brad Crawford, talking Gamecock football. He joined us a little bit earlier. Drive around the SEC. But now it's game show music time. Don't really care what we do.
You just want to hear the music.
That's all I'm here for.
All right, Jay or nay? We'll start with your Atlanta Braves. Jay or nay? Freddie Gonzalez will make a difference.
Yeah, if y'all haven't heard, Matt Tuiasosopo, the Braves' third base coach the last couple of years, has been reassigned to a minor league instructional role. And Freddie Gonzalez, yes, that Freddie Gonzalez, Bobby Cox's longtime third base coach and the Braves manager for several seasons, is back as third base coach and will help with the Braves in some coaching ways. Yeah, I think this matters. Look, I heard one of the national things earlier, Elijah. So Jay is my answer. Scapegoating a third base coach. I think there's more to it than that. And for those of you who are longtime Braves fans like me, or just follow the team closely, this team is missing Ron Washington. This team is missing Anthony Young. They are missing good assistant coaches, and having a great staff does matter. How much, I don't know. You better have dudes that can hit and pitch. I get that too. But I think having Freddie back will help. If Freddie can, be a left-handed flamethrower out of the bullpen, that'll help even more. I don't know at age 61 that's what he's got in him, though.
I don't think so either.
But I think it'll matter. I do. I think it'll matter.
Jay or nay? Texas Tech's Nigeri Kennedy is the most dominant athlete in college sports right now. Texas Tech's in the Women's College World Series final. She's got a season ERA of 0.9, a whip of 0.72, 33-5 record. Opponents are only hitting 153 against her. She struck out 304 batters this year, 44 walks in 226 innings.
I don't know how she lost 5 times.
And she's thrown every pitch in this College World Series run.
On a pound-for-pound basis, Jay is the answer.
And she leads the team in OPS and home runs.
Yeah, we were talking to her and watched her the other day. It's quite remarkable. She is awesome. It's quite remarkable, actually. And I'd like to have somebody do some type of statistical analysis, like side-by-sides, and figure out where she might rank in sport dominance in college. Because, yikes, man.
The numbers are awe-inspiring.
Yeah. So
that ERA even went up because Oklahoma put up 2 runs against her yesterday.
But, yeah, it's them in Texas for the title, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, them in Texas for all the marbles.
How about that?
Now, here's one I didn't think I would say this year. Jay or nay? The Detroit Tigers at 40-21 and the best record in baseball. They should be seen as legitimate threats to win the World Series. The Tigers?
For now, they should. They can pitch. They can hit. And you want to know what's interesting? If they need to strengthen, excuse me, do you know who has the number 1 rated minor league system right now in the bigs?
Would that be the Tigers?
The Detroit Tigers, man.
Woo!
So they got it going. I look, if they could get there, a 7-game series against the Yankees to try and get to the World Series, or a 7-game series against the Dodgers or the Phillies or the Mets, I at this point, yeah. But again, when they need to strengthen, and they likely will, they probably have some prospects they can give up, man. So they're in really good shape.
Gary Carpenter hit 3 home runs last night.
Really good shape. But again, they're doing it all right now. They can pitch, they can score.
All right, last one, Jay or nay. In order to enjoy the NBA Finals, I must first observe the market size of the 2 participants.
Nay. I know a lot of people are saying that. And look, I'll be a cynic that says, oh, that's a ratings bonanza when you've got Indiana going against Oklahoma. But you got 2 really good teams. You got some exciting basketball. If you love basketball, you'll enjoy this. If you don't love basketball and you just want Lakers Celtics all the time, I don't know what to tell you.
We have plenty of footage.
But I don't think it'll do great ratings-wise, but I do think it'll be good basketball. At least I hope so. Hour 3 coming up. And however you're watching basketball or baseball or anything else, do it better with integrated media. Now's a great time to get ahead of the football rush. 803-948-8327. The great thing about integrated media is the equipment they sell is the same price that you're going to pay at the big box stores or online or whatever else. The difference is that you pay for expert installation and assistance and support. If you need them later on, they'll be there for you. Every once in a while, listen, it's electronics, all right? It's the interwebs, and it doesn't always go perfectly smooth, all right? It gets a little glitchy. They're ready to help you out all the time. That's one of the best things about it. It's just the service and the support that they provide their customers. They care about you, I promise. I've been dealing with these guys a long time. They're awesome. Indoors, outdoors, one room, whole house, speakers everywhere, Wi-Fi that works everywhere. The best in home technology, 803-948-8327. It's integrated media.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways. We'll start off with 2 reports of disabled vehicles causing traffic backups. That'd be on Gervais Street at Hugh G. Street and on Raven Road near Ross Road. Accidents that are causing traffic backups include Weed Drive at South Carolina 6 and North Lake Drive, Hunter's Blind Drive at Beaver Dam Road, and lastly, Hampton Street at Sumter Street.
It is 5 o'clock news time here on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Also the final hour of the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. We start with some Gamecock news for you, and it's good news for Gamecock baseball fans. Jake McCoy will be back next season. Our good friend John Whittle, as well as Jack Veltri, both reporting on this. Last year, McCoy was the only Gamecock starter who had a start in all 14 weekends. The only starting pitcher to do that. The numbers, not fantastic. 60 innings pitched, a 6.90 ERA, a 4-5 record. The 4 wins were tied for the best mark on the team. 62 hits allowed with 40 walks and 77 strikeouts. But he is someone who can continue to develop and progress. And you've got to hope that's going to be the case. There's still a lot of guys that are moving in and out of the portal. It officially did the portal yesterday. Kids can enter through the end of the month. Now, you don't have to choose another school, but you just have to get into the portal by July 1. And you can still enroll up until your school starts, wherever you want to go.
In some instances, you never leave.
That's right. And there's a few others, but that's a big one. But Elijah and I were just looking at it, too, in terms of some of the things that Carolina's going to have to improve upon. In conference games only, South Carolina's ERA was 8.95. The opponent ERA in conference games, 4.28. I mean,
quite the discrepancy.
More than 4.5 runs a game. OPS, that's on-base percentage plus slugging. South Carolina's was .744. Again, in conference or in college baseball, you'd like your OPS to be around 900, around it. That's a solid OPS in college baseball. In the bigs, it's a little lower. But this isn't the bigs. This is college.
Your average major league player, I think, is at like 730.
Yeah. And you know, when you're over 800 in the bigs, that's pretty solid. Opponents' OPS in conference games, 1.021. Yeah.
Another large discrepancy.
It's a big discrepancy. So there's a lot to work on. But having Jake McCoy back and a few others is good. And again, the Gamecocks are hitting the portal really hard, but that news came out. And I think that's one worth sharing because, again, there's experience, and there's someone who wants to improve and wants to be here. But I think it's interesting. He's the only starting pitcher to have a start in each of Carolina's weekend series.
And in terms of pitchers who have like SEC stuff, he's got some SEC stuff. Yeah. He throws really hard.
He's got some.
The velocity's there. I think the control is the one thing they're going to have to.
Absolutely. How much more do you develop? How much do you use some of the pitching lab tools that are at your disposal, which, again, seems to be some form of discrepancy with exactly how those things are utilized?
Got to quite literally get him in the lab,
as
the kids would say.
That's right.
But this is a literal lab for pitching.
That's right. But again, Jake McCoy will be back. I mentioned just a few minutes ago, good news for one Gamecock athlete. I know we don't talk a lot of golf when it comes to what the guys do, but real big congratulations to Frankie Harris, the Gamecock junior from Florida, has qualified for the United States Open Championship. How cool is that?
That is awesome. Yeah, fantastic.
They wrap things up today. He was co-medalist at a final qualifying event at the Emerald Dunes Club down in West Palm Beach. That sounds really nice.
That sounds like a great place to spend a weekend.
Yeah, or more.
Or a week.
Yeah.
Or a month.
Like buy a house on one of those holes, man.
Be pretty nice.
It's probably only like a couple $100,000.
I mean, I could probably lift up a few couches in my home and scrounge up enough change to.
Mortgage is probably a couple $100,000 a month.
The minimum.
But it is very cool. Way to go, Frankie Harris. Again, junior from Boca Raton. He will be the first Gamecock to compete in the U.S. Open since Matt Neesmith 3 years ago. And Matt finished in the top 40 up in Brookline.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So way to go. Again, Frankie Harris. Be watching for him next week. The Canadian Open is this week. You have to use hockey sticks, and there's a lot of moose.
Yes, and there's a goalie in front of the hole, too. So the scores aren't going to be great.
And 1/3 of all people speak French, and they yell at you.
That's right. But there's all the Tim Hortons you could possibly dream of having access to.
And the winner gets like a big jug of syrup, as they say up there.
Oh, yeah.
We're just playing with you Canadian fans. We love you.
More craft dinner per capita than any golf tournament in America or in North America.
Hey, listen, in all seriousness, RBC, thank you for what you do to keep the heritage here in America instead of taking it somewhere else. No, so we're just playing. But the Canadian Open is this week, for real. The Canadian Open, followed by the U.S. Open, which is good. Keep it,
I like it.
Sure.
No, it's a good back-to-back right there. It's easy to remember, too.
That's right. As Elijah asked me earlier, but I'll give you the full details, the Atlanta Braves are indeed bringing Freddie Gonzalez back as third base coach. Matt Tuiasosopo has been reassigned as a minor league. I like this, too. The AP writes, Tuiasosopo has accepted a role as minor league infield coordinator.
It's a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah. In other words, hey, bud, we don't want to fire you, but you can't be with the big club anymore. You good with that? Yeah, sure, why not? He'll be back. He'll be back. Yes, and if you're wondering, wait, Jay, Freddie Gonzalez, like that Freddie Gonzalez? Yes, Freddie Gonzalez was the longtime third base coach under Bobby Cox. Took over for Bobby back in 2010. Was the Braves manager for, 6 years? He's around a long time, man. But it wasn't his fault that things began to slide. The team basically admitted we're going through
a rebuild.
Yep. But Freddie kind of got scapegoated. But Snit took over. And Snit's won the World Series, and he's won some divisions. And now Snit needs a little help.
Hey, I'll never forget summer 2015 when they knocked down the prices for general admission for weekday home games to $1.
Right. Just come on in.
That was awesome. It was great. It was fantastic.
Bring the
I
kids.
enjoyed that.
And that's how far drive down 75 for you back then? Like 3 hours?
It was about 3.5, 4 hours, depending, on traffic. Yeah. But, man, many days.
First 2.5 hours are great.
And then you're stuck.
Then you get to Atlanta.
Yeah, and then you're stuck for a little bit. But no, a lot of fun summer afternoons there.
Well, we'll see if this helps. I hope it does. But the Braves, after getting to a game over 500, have now lost 8 of 11.
Not good.
No, it's not good.
And
I think the problem is they don't score more than the other guy.
Is that an issue?
Well,
I thought it was just polite.
It matters.
Yeah.
It matters.
It was very polite of them to let the Nationals pass them in the NL East standings.
How much it matters is up to you from a subjective point of view. But scoring more than the other team is becoming a problem.
I recommend not doing
I do too. I recommend doing that more often than not.
And this is why we should be baseball consultants and make a lot of money.
Meanwhile, the New York Knicks did score more than the other guy on a very regular basis this year, even in the playoffs, even eliminating the reigning champion, even getting to their first conference final since I think maybe Bill Clinton or at least George Bush's first term, at least.
It was 99-2000 season.
Clinton was still president, man.
Yeah, I wasn't even in kindergarten yet.
I mean, that's how long it's been. Clinton was still president. And they fire their head coach, Tom Thibodeau, today. That's right.
Stupid. Dumb.
Their deepest playoff run in a quarter century, and Tibbs is out the door.
What a way to thank him.
Team president, Leon Rose, said, quote, "Our organization is singularly focused on winning a championship for our fans. This pursuit led us to the decision to inform Tom that we've decided to move in another direction. We can't thank Tom enough."
So we're going to fire him because we just can't. We don't have the capabilities of thanking him.
Into each and every day of being the New York Knicks head coach. But ultimately, we made the decision we feel is best for our organization moving forward. Tom will always be part of our Knicks family, and we truly wish him nothing but the best in the future. I mean, when you say things like that, I know what they're trying to say, and they may have their reasons. I was talking to you earlier about this because we found this out right as we were coming on the air, and maybe about 10 minutes before we came on the air, and I remember when Doug Collins was fired by the Bulls, and they brought in Phil. And it was basically kind of the same thing. Like, hey, thanks, Doug. You've done some good here, but you've taken us as far as we can go. And it may well be true. I'm not. But when the Knicks do it, and I hear them say we're singularly focused on winning a championship for our fans, you know what? No, you're really not, because most of the time you stink.
You're bad.
And your owner is a terrible owner. And I think now that your owner has decided to, I don't know what, just finally step away. Maybe somebody finally got to him and said, "Hey, Jimmy, you really are part of the problem." And maybe he believes him. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, the guy has banned more Nick Greats from Madison Square Garden than trips to the Eastern Conference Finals since '99.
when you hurt his feelings, he gets mad.
Very thin-skinned.
So there you go.
So dumb. The NBA is so bad at doing that, of poorly timed firings between the Nuggets and Grizzlies firing their successful head coaches within a week of the season ending. And the Knicks thanking Tom Thibodeau for a historic playoff run, considering it's been so long since they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals, by firing him.
I suppose they at least give him the final year of his contract, right? He had 1 year left. What do you think he's pulling down? 5, 10? Somewhere in there?
5, maybe. Yeah.
Because, like, Steve Kerr makes a lot and Spoelstra makes a lot. But, I mean, they've done things. I get it.
But, I mean, the blueprint here for New York is pretty simple, right? If you want to follow what the Bulls did by firing Doug Collins and then hiring Phil Jackson, and then do what the Warriors did by firing Mark Jackson after a couple of successful seasons, then hiring Steve Kerr. You just got to hire a Hall of Fame coach after that. That's it. That's all you got to do.
You don't need the best player maybe ever, and one of the best shooting guards maybe ever.
Pretty simple. Pretty straightforward. Just hire a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I'm the idiot here.
Right.
Maybe it's me.
Yeah, it wasn't Jordan.
No.
It wasn't Jordan. It wasn't Steph.
Yeah.
Nah. They're good. They're
all
good.
Right, I guess. Yeah.
And I like Brunson. Brunson reminds me of Jordan. He's a basketball player.
Yeah.
He wears shoes.
Landry Shamet's also a basketball player.
No, you're just making up names now. You're just making up names.
Now he's gone from Pascal Siakam denial to Landry Shamet denial, which Landry Shamet denial is a little easier of a boat to get into.
I know Pascal is real. Finally, Super Regionals are set for this weekend. Louisville versus Miami, Florida State versus Oregon State, Arizona at North Carolina, Coastal at Auburn. Those will be your Friday through Sunday series. Saturday through Monday, UTSA at UCLA. Again, that's just fun to do.
A lot of letters.
Murray State at Duke. You heard me right. Murray State at Duke in a baseball Sweet 16 game.
I was going to say, is this being
That's
played
not basketball.
Like MSG or something?
It is not. It's not basketball. That is Murray State, a basketball school, at Duke, a basketball school, in baseball, in the Super Regional.
They decided to get a little experimental and try another sport out.
West Virginia will be at LSU and Tennessee at Arkansas. Only 4 of the 13 Southeastern Conference schools made it in, and 5 of the 11 ACC schools made it in. But both are guaranteed at least one participant in the College World Series because they each have one Super Regional against the other. So,
but it would be really funny if the Missouri Valley Conference and Conference USA got a team in.
They could. And I think Coastal's going to win at Auburn, man. And I know it's Sun Belt, but I think they're going to.
There's a good chance we get 3.
I really do.
FCS level schools.
Could happen.
Playing in the College World Series.
That's our headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media, 803-948-8327. Come back on the other side. Brad Crawford, National College Football Analyst for 24/7 Sports, joined Elijah and me earlier in the program. A few thoughts from Brad on the Gamecocks. We'll revisit some of it on the other side. This is the Postgame Show. I tell you a lot about the Joint Chiropractic Centers. Feeling a little stiff, need to get things loosened up. The Joint can help you out with that. But let me kind of take you into a step farther. If you become a regular client at the Joint Chiropractic Centers, it's not just your local one here in the greater Columbia area. This summer you could be traveling for a vacation or for business. Soon enough, as we talk a lot of football, you might be traveling to see your favorite team on the road, or maybe a bowl game later. Whatever reasons that you're away from Columbia, if you're heading out of town, there are Joint Chiropractic Centers all across the country, hundreds of them actually. And since you'll be in the Joint system, a new doctor can access your records, see your treatment history, and know exactly how to help you out. Now, here in Columbia, Harbison Boulevard, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch, and Sunset Boulevard, convenient and affordable, never need appointments, never need insurance, FSA and HSA approved. Convenient all across the country. Remember this, you don't have to feel bad to feel better at the joint. Nineteen minutes after 5 o'clock here on a Tuesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. Welcome back in. Earlier today, we spoke to our buddy Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports national college football analyst, a contributor to CBS Sports as well, and just an all-around good dude. It's fun to talk to Brad. He knows his ball.
Which is the best title you can give him.
That's right.
All-around good dude.
Since the answer you'll first hear was a question from Elijah Campbell, I'll toss it to Elijah Campbell to set up the answer.
Yeah, one of my favorite things from this offseason is seeing Brad kind of sing the praises of Lenora Sellers and really highlight what he did the last 6 weeks of the year. Last year was incredibly special, and that's one of our biggest talking points on this station in this offseason is what leap can Lenoris make, and really how good is he compared to like the best of the best in the SEC. So that's what I kind of led into with Brad, asking about where Lenoris is to him in the SEC quarterback hierarchy.
Yeah, I think at worst, seeing what Lenoris did those last 6 starts would probably be 3 behind Garrett Nussmeier, who I consider to be the top pick in next year's draft at LSU, and Arch Manning. I know we haven't seen as much of Arch Manning as we have Lenora Sellers, but I do trust that Texas has a ton of weapons, and they've spent a lot of money this offseason to make sure that offense, despite losing players to the NFL draft, is going to be elite. I mean, if Lenora Sellers had some of the receivers that LSU and Texas do, then I think he might be the Heisman front runner, not just being one of the favorites. So I'm looking forward, though, to seeing how Lenora Sellers develops as a second-year starter for the Gamecocks. I think the Mike Shula offense is going to cater to his strengths. I don't think we're going to see Lenoris run as much as he did last season based on what they have behind him, but I do think that Sellers, this Gamecock offense is going to go as far as Sellers takes it, and if they can protect him or not.
I know you know Josh Pate pretty well. He on one of his recent shows, he was doing top 5 returning quarterbacks, and he mentioned Lenoris and a few others, but didn't put him in the top 5 list. And it wasn't a knock, he said, on Lenoris as much as the concern about the wide receiving core and the depth right there, Brad. What more have you – I mean, look, we know what Nick Harbor's about. We saw Mazio Bennett take a couple of nice steps. They've recruited well there, but how big and unknown is that, A, and B, to come back around to your answer to Elijah, how much does that factor in to the overall evaluation of Lenora Sellers and this offense?
I think it certainly factors in. I mean, you look over at Clemson, Cade Klubnik has 3 potential, early round draft picks at wide receiver, and South Carolina has a bunch of true freshmen that they're going to rely on this year outside of Nick Harbor. So if I'm Lenora Sellers, obviously I'm comfortable with what I have in the wide receiver room, but there's a lot of unproven talent there, Jay. I'm surprised that South Carolina did not go into the portal, especially post-spring. After watching the spring game, I wasn't all that impressed with the wide receiver core. Several guys made plays, namely Malik Clark. He's a guy who's going to be a first-year impact guy. But I just think South Carolina could have used NIL money this offseason to maybe go get a high-profile wide receiver. Penn State was another program that did that, and they were able to sign, a top-end guy in April. The Gamecocks did not. But to Shane Beamer's credit, he has recruited the portal well, and he knows that wide receiver room better than anybody. And Shane has said throughout spring and after spring practice that they feel good about the 5 or 7 guys who are going to see the field at that position this season.
Yeah, and they've got a couple of tight ends they like, too. Also, Donovan Murph is coming in this summer. Now, again, another true freshman, but highly rated, could have gone almost anywhere. Do you believe that might have been a factor in why they didn't go into the portal? Do they almost see that as a 50-50, Brad?
I think they do. There's been a lot of hype behind Donovan Murph. Obviously, going from high school to SEC over about 15 fall practices is going to be tough. There's a reason that there's not many 1,000-yard true freshman receivers in SEC history. But if Donovan Murph can come in and have 30 catches, 500 yards, and they kind of have that by committee approach within that wide receiver room, I do think they're going to be okay at that position. The big question is the development of Nick Harbor. Is he going to be a wide receiver 1? I've seen him in a lot of first-round mocks. I don't see a first-round talent out there yet out of Nick, but maybe that changes here in a few months.
Brad, I want to go back to one of your responses earlier when talking about South Carolina's schedule, because I find a couple of games on there that are intriguing. I might be leaning South Carolina in those games, but they're intriguing. Like Missouri's intriguing because it's a road game with a new quarterback who showed a lot of promise at Penn State. And I still don't know what to make of Oklahoma. So I'm kind of pivoting to Oklahoma as well. John Mateer is certainly an interesting player to come in and take over at quarterback. This is a program that is accustomed to a lot more success than they've had with Brent Venables as head coach. What do you kind of make of them right now when they come into Columbia here this year?
Yeah, that October schedule, man, it starts with that bye week, and then you go to LSU, you host Oklahoma, host Alabama, and then November 1st you play at Ole Miss. If South Carolina can find a way to go 3-1 over that, 4-game murderer's row, I do think that this is going to be a team that can get to the playoff for the first time in program history. Now, you mentioned Oklahoma. They're going to be a team that's a lot more potent offensively than I think Missouri. If the Gamecocks were playing Oklahoma in Week 4, I think fans should be a little bit more worried than playing Missouri, because I do think Oklahoma is going to be a much improved football team, not only with Mateer, but they also brought his OC with him from Washington State, Ben Arbuckle, and they got Jay Knott, a guy that had 1,300 yards rushing 2 years ago at Cal. So Oklahoma has spent money this offseason, just like LSU has. That LSU, fellas, is the team that I've kind of put all my stock in the SEC this summer, and I really think that this is going to be the best LSU team we've seen since 2019.
Brad Crawford joining Elijah and me earlier today. Again, you can see and hear the entire interview on our YouTube page. But good stuff from Brad. Yeah, the Hyatt kid at Oklahoma is going to be good.
Ran for a ton of yards at Cal.
He's going to be good. Coming back around to mention like Nick Harbor, and we know what Brad means when he says, I don't see a first-round talent there. I think you know there's talent and potential. I suppose what you need to say is right now, I don't see first-round production.
Yes.
And those things have to mesh. Now, Nick Harbor will be drafted. And he may be drafted if things even progress on sort of the same trajectory he's been on, where you don't see a massive spike, he still may be taken over his, say, recommended slot, for lack of a better term.
Because he's going to put up numbers at the combine that will make some folks.
Yeah. There's some of those men with their little stopwatches are going to start crying.
Yeah, Charlie Casserly would pass out on the spot.
Others will pass out. Some will cry. A little shedding of happy tears. Oh, it's a 4.19. I don't know what he runs, but it's going to be fast.
They're not going to believe what's on the stopwatch.
Yeah, it's going to be fast.
They'll have him do it again.
It's going to be fast. And then he's just going to keep running. Like, oh, I thought this was a whole track thing. Sorry, I just kept on going. You do need to see more from it. I think you will see it. I think you will see a step up from Mazio Bennett. And I ask about Murph because I don't think Brad is wrong. But, Shane has told us, not just you and me, although he has told you and me, but he's told a lot of people, we'll go into the portal post-spring if the talent is there to really, really help us. Otherwise, we like who we have already. We've gone into the – by then you've gone into the portal. So there's reason, I think, to I don't know what words we want to label the receiving core with. Concern? No. Caution, anxiousness. I don't really know. You can't go into it going, hey, they're loaded for bear. This is not Alabama of a few years ago. And forgive me, when Smith won the Heisman, but who's the kid that got hurt?
Oh, Williams.
And there was the best guy, right?
Blanking.
And anyway, but you see my point. You could be loaded.
Jamison Williams.
Yeah, you could be loaded. But you haven't really seen enough of it yet. And, not to push back on you or Brad, look, I know they didn't win, but I still think Lenoris had other than a couple of plays he wants back, which I think were real teaching moments for him, I thought he had a good game at Alabama.
He had a great game at Alabama. Well, that was really the turning point for Lenoris last year. He was that Alabama game.
He played very well at Alabama. He did. Despite what some may want you to believe, he did. Now, again, he wants that two-pointer back that he threw into row 6.
Right.
I get it. And one turnover that he wants back. I get it. But those are teaching moments for a kid who was in his first full season playing at Bryant-Denny as a 21-point underdog.
Not oftentimes do freshman quarterbacks or even redshirt freshman quarterbacks have that light turn on.
Right. But you saw it that
their
day.
eyes to their potential like he did.
Yeah.
In that game.
You genuinely saw it that day. Like that was, to me, I was like, you know what? Hey, I get they lost, but that was a good game.
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't lose again until the bowl game. And that was a good game. Could have won, had a chance.
Yeah. Oh, they had a chance.
Appreciate Brad. B Crawford 247 to follow Brad on Twitter if you don't already. And again, to check out the YouTube page if you want to hear all of it, including Brad's answer to the question of what is the toughest game on South Carolina's schedule. Go check that out on the YouTube page. Drive Around the SEC is next. We'll incorporate some of the NCAA baseball tournament into it. This is the Postgame Show.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon here in the Midlands, starting with one on Barnwell Street near Laurel Street, Bush River Road near St. Andrews Road, DeQuincy Newman Freeway at Sunset Drive, Fordham Drive at Fashion Drive, one at Highway 302 at Columbia Airport Expressway, and lastly, one just now reported over at US 176 at Broad River Road near St. Andrews Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time here on a Tuesday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. And we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but 13 Southeastern Conference schools invited into the NCAA baseball tournament. Just 4 remain. And one super regional matchup is an all-SEC affair as Tony Vitello takes his national champion Tennessee Volunteers over to Fayetteville to take on his old boss, Dave Van Horn and the Razorbacks. So one of them guaranteed to go to Omaha. And that's how that works.
Apprentice meets master.
That's right. Not going to surprise. I don't know. I suppose I expect Arkansas to win that series.
I do, yeah.
But
I expect them to win the college.
I kind of do too. I kind of do too. You know, I don't know, man. North Carolina's really good. But I'm with you. I think it's Arkansas's time, and it's Dave Van Horn's time. Like, you got to do it at some point. It turned into a Mike Martin thing.
It's starting to, but they have the power hitting this year. They finally hit with so much power now. Now's one of the reasons why on our Cinco de Mayo show, I was like, I'm going to go ahead and pick a team now. And it felt like Arkansas.
Yeah,
in terms of being the most complete. I think they're probably just the most complete team that's still in this field.
So Tennessee will be at Arkansas. That will be a Saturday through Monday. Let me give you the whole rundown real quick, then we'll come back around to some SEC stuff and Kevin O'Sullivan's apology. I suppose it was an apology. I don't know how sincere it is.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sincere apology, but it is an apology on paper, literally on paper, because it was a prepared press release.
But the Super Regionals look like this. Miami at Louisville. Miami winning last night in Hattiesburg. So the Golden Eagles were the hosts, but Miami won. So way to go, Miami. So they go to Louisville. So both of those are 2 seeds, by the way, in their respective regionals.
Crazy, considering Miami basically fell apart for the last month and a half of the season.
Florida State will be at Oregon State. That is an 8-9 national seed matchup. So FSU is the 9, going to number 8, Oregon State. Arizona travels across the country to take on North Carolina. And Coastal will be at Auburn. That, again, your Friday through Sunday matchups, with, again, Sunday games being if necessary. Saturday through Monday, UTSA at UCLA. UTSA, that's Texas San Antonio, winning in Austin.
It's the Alphabet Soup series.
I love it, man. Again, Murray State at Duke. Murray State last night eliminating another SEC school, Mississippi, in Oxford, 12-11.
They had a 12-3 run lead.
Yeah.
12-3 lead at one point in that game.
Ole Miss came all the way back, and it was, it was fun. I was watching that. It was fun to watch their coach in postgame and his little guy and the Gatorade dump, and he came back to talk, but that was neat. That was neat. And you feel for Ole Miss getting that close, but hey, don't let them score 12 runs early. But again, Murray State at Duke. So as Elijah and I joked earlier, that's 2 basketball schools in a super regional in baseball. Sweet 16 matchup. You said, oh, sure, Murray State. Like you said, what'd you say at the Garden?
Yeah, they're probably playing an MSG or probably in a football stadium somewhere.
But nope. And I haven't seen yet. I think they have to play. I don't know if they're playing at the Bulls
Park up in Durham, or if they can play at Duke.
The house that Crash Davis built?
Yeah, not quite. So I haven't seen that yet. I think there was some talk of that. Now, Duke has been to Supers before, but I think they were all on the road. So I think they had to put in, like, if you're going to host a Super, do you have a place you could host? So I don't know if they've
with a capacity requirement.
Yeah, seriously. And so I don't know what that looks like. And honestly, I haven't checked this afternoon, so I probably have seen something now, or something's probably out. West Virginia will be at LSU, and as we mentioned, Tennessee at Arkansas. Again, those 4 series are your Saturday through Monday. I really like Coastal's opportunity at Auburn. I do, and I was talking to somebody about the Coastal team today, and I did not realize this because I tried to watch as much as I could this weekend. But quite honestly, I didn't tune into Coastal much because they just kept on winning easily. They were just like, whatever.
That 1-0 game against ECU was a blast.
Apparently, 4 of and they have a deep bullpen, but apparently 4 of their better bullpen arms did not throw a pitch this weekend.
That's a luxury.
That is, man. To give your guys a week off at the end of May, and then say you got and look, and I don't say this as a knock, I promise. Auburn is probably not the most intimidating SEC baseball environment. I mean, any road environment can be difficult, and anytime a trip to Omaha is on the line, it's going to get a little more raucous than some average weekend, right? I understand that, but Coastal's not having to go to Fayetteville or Starkville or Baton Rouge or even coming here when this place is rocking. And so I think, and listen, Coastal's built for it. I agree with those who said Coastal's probably underseeded
because of how just
I think
accustomed to winning.
Right.
They just know how to win ball games.
And their conference, the Sun Belt's a good league. I mean, their league had two hosts.
They went 26-4.
Yeah, and they won it rather comfortably. Did the Chanticleers. So I like their chances. I think LSU will beat West Virginia. We should expect that, I suppose. But West Virginia was very comfortable in winning the Clemson Regional, so I can certainly see them getting it up. And they won. I think they're on 45 wins, man. So they're used to winning.
They're pretty. And they've had a really solid run the last few years.
So again, the ACC and the SEC guaranteed one team apiece because there's an all ACC and an all SEC Super. But I'd like to see. I like Chris Pollard, and I'd like to see Duke make it. Again, they've been to some Supers, kind of like when Tom Walter finally got Wake Forest up there. You'd like to see a guy in a really strong league at a smaller school that doesn't necessarily have the interest. I mean, mighty Florida State, mighty Clemson, mighty UNC out of the ACC, mighty Miami. Virginia has their title.
Mm-hmm.
But here's Duke and Wake, man, little welterweights that are punching
well above that weight class. It'd be really funny if we had a College World Series final between North Carolina and Duke.
Oh, that would actually be pretty cool.
That would be pretty fun.
That would be pretty cool.
I don't think it happens, but that would be really fun. I'd be here for the story.
Yeah,
as we oftentimes are on.
Hey,
program.
Look, this year's tournament, not much is going to surprise me. So that wouldn't.
Or a Coastal Carolina Murray State final.
If Murray State,
that would rule.
If Murray State beats Duke, that's going to be one thing. But if they could advance all the way through, wow,
the little engine that could.
Wow, that would be something. But hey, who knows, man? I'm not ready to pick yet, but I'm kind of with you. I can see Arkansas definitely getting it done. I can. They're strong.
Yeah.
They're strong.
I can't find a weakness right now. The top end starting pitching isn't as good as what it was last year or the last couple of years, but it's still good enough. And I think they have enough reliable starters, and the bullpen isn't a hindrance on them. So I mean, I think they are just probably the most well-rounded of anybody else still in this field.
I think that's fair. I think North Carolina's pretty darn good too, man. But I'm with you. I would pick. I would give the slight nod to Arkansas. We'll come back, and I'll read you Kevin O'Sullivan's apology, and then we'll get into a little Jay versus the Internet. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
All right, welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show here on this Tuesday. Jay and Elijah with you. Let me quickly kind of conclude the drive around the SEC, and then I want to thank our buddy Brian Burnett for letting me know about Duke. But by now, many of you have seen and or heard of Kevin O'Sullivan's just incredibly F-bomb-laced rant at a staffer from Coastal and an NCAA tournament site representative after the Florida ECU game Sunday was moved from noon to 1. Basically, the Coastal ECU game ran long after midnight, and they decided to change it. Whether Kevin knew in advance or not is still maybe up in the air a little bit. I am told he did know and just wanted to vent his frustrations on whoever he could.
Taking it out on somebody.
Yeah, rather than letting his athletics director handle that, which is really the typical protocol. But Kevin O'Sullivan being Kevin O'Sullivan. And again, y'all, if it's, if you don't like cuss words, don't watch it. All right?
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah, and then some. But he said prior to yesterday's NCAA tournament game against East Carolina, I let my emotions get the best of me and channeled that energy in a way I should not have. I want to sincerely apologize for my actions and behavior to the entire NCAA regional field of Coastal Carolina, East Carolina, and Fairfield, the NCAA, including site representatives Rich French and Mark Scaff, as well as all of Gator Nation. I did not represent the University of Florida to the appropriate standard, and I take full responsibility and promise to learn from this experience and be better moving forward. We'll see. I'm glad you apologized because you had to. You were forced to do this. Your boss made you, and his boss. So we'll see if he's sincere.
I'll believe it when I see it.
And we know he's kind of a curmudgeonly type anyway, right?
Yeah, which is why I don't have much faith that he changes.
Thank you to our buddy Brian Burnett for letting me know Duke will indeed be hosting at home. And I just once Brian sent me that note, I looked. They have made a few tweaks for some seating capacity and other things just in case. So they're ready to host. Good for them. Good for them. But you're right. I hadn't thought about that yet, Elijah. If it's a Duke Chapel Hill College World Series final,
It'd be funny. It'd be funny.
I'm not sure the universe can hold all of that ego, but we'll see.
No.
We'll see.
And hatred.
All right, Jay versus the internet time here. What do we got?
Well, no hatred for you. You went 1-1 last night, which beat the internet, which 0-2. And you're like, Elijah, we had 3 games or 3 things to vote on. Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto combined for the same amount of total bases as Shohei and Freddie. So it's a push, so it didn't count either way.
Okay.
But you did beat the internet last night thanks to your Colorado Rockies.
How about that?
You not only covered a 2.5-run spread, they beat
Won the game, man.
the Marlins on the road for only their 4th road win of the year. Incredible. Yeah. Look at you cashing in on the Rockies. Winning.
I know what's up.
Winning. So here's today's. Right now, Jay at 12-20. Improves to getting 5 games behind the internet, who is at 17-15. And for tonight's games, we'll start off with Spencer Strider back on the mound. Will he strike out over or under 6.5 Diamondbacks tonight?
Was I wrong about him the other day? I know I was wrong about Grant Holmes.
Yes, I think you were wrong about Spencer Strider.
6.5?
Mm-hmm.
Playing Arizona. Yeah, sure. Give me the over.
Jay Phillips goes over, and with 58% of the vote, it was very close. The internet also goes over.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a push.
Keeping it there in Atlanta, who will record more total bases between Diamondback star Corbin Carroll or Brave star Ronald Acuna?
Acuna had a dinger the other day. I think it's the second game where the Braves' only run has been a Acuna homer.
Acuna homer.
Ronald.
He says Ronald, and with 64% of the vote, so does the internet.
Okay.
In total agreement.
All right.
Now here's the fun one. Who will score the most runs tonight out of these NL East teams? The Braves against the Diamondbacks, the Nationals at home against the Cubs, the Mets in L.A. against the Dodgers, or the Phillies in Toronto against the Blue Jays?
I don't have time to look at everybody's ERAs, do I, for starting pitchers against those teams? Nats are playing who?
The Cubs.
No, I don't like that one. It's not going to be the Mets in L.A., so it's either the Phillies or the Braves, huh?
And the Braves are facing off against Zach Gallen, who is not having a solid year. ERA north of 5.
Yeah, give me the Braves because I don't want to pick the Phillies to do anything good. So even if I lose, I don't care.
Now, this is one of our closer ones. 35% say Mets at Dodgers. just barely squeaking out against Phillies, Blue Jays, which had 30% of the vote.
Okay.
Braves, Diamondbacks had 20. Nats, Cubs had 15.
Okay. Yeah, give me the Braves.
So that's the big one tonight.
All right. Well, there's something.
Still opens the door for a push if the Phillies were to do something crazy, or the Nationals.
I would rather the Phillies lose. I don't like the Phillies.
But maybe they lose like 12-11.
That sounds good.
Like Ole Miss last night.
All right. Hey, a loss is a loss. That's all I care about. Thanks to Brad Crawford and Jordan Kaye for joining us. Y'all check those interviews out on the YouTube page. Good stuff, Elijah Campbell. Appreciate all y'all listening. We'll do it again tomorrow at 3. See ya.